Okay. Phil, can we do a sound check? Okay. 1, 1, 2, 2. Hello, welcome. We just went live on YouTube, just doing a YouTube sound check, making sure everything is okay and working. Yeah? Okay. Let's try this microphone also. Test 1, 1, 2, 2. Testing, just seeing if this microphone is working as well. Okay. Bobby's online. There's Bobby. How are you this morning? You're on mute. You have to unmute if you want to.
Hi, Bobby.
There. Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, how are you all?
All good.
Services have been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the messages, absolutely perfect.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Why don't you mute and we'll start in a few minutes.
I will mute.
We're making progress. I'll be indulgent for a moment. Shana Tova, Mom.
Shana Tova.
And now I'll do what sons around the world have longed to do for centuries. Mute my mother. Shana Tova, Joel. Okay. Thanks, God. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Wonderful to be together on this continuing holiday of Rosh HaShanah, our new year, and we welcome all of our participants and helpers who are here at Temple, as well as all of you joining us via either live stream on YouTube or our Zoom link. So we create community wherever we can. And if we look actually at page 110, we find the song Ma Tovu, a familiar song to many of us. But its words are important as we seek to create community, especially during these difficult, challenging times. Ma Tovu ohelecha Yaakov, how beautiful, how wonderful are your tents, Jacob. And what is a tent? A tent is a temporary structure. And so we create our own temporary structure of community that encompasses and expands beyond the physical presence of being here in the building and extends to include the YouTube channels and our Zoom link and all those who join us even after watching our service on our Zoom channel. So we have almost as many people who watch the service after as watch our service while it's live. And so our tent is expanding in some ways and wonderful to include so many people. And so we'll begin with that song, Ma Tovu.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Vani birov chasdecha avovitecha, eshtachaveh kodshecha be'iratecha. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Page 113. In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall observe complete rest, a sacred occasion commemorated with loud blasts of Zichron Teruah. You shall not work at your occupations, and you shall bring an offering by fire to Adonai. Page 120. As we thank God for the complicated and mysterious workings of our bodies, that say even if one little section, if one little part of ourselves that is supposed to be open were to be closed, or something that is closed and we find open, the whole system would be thrown into chaos. And how miraculous it is that, thank God, more or less, things work as they should. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, uvaravo nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei chisei chavodecha, she'im yifateach echad mehem, o yisetem echad mehem, אי-אפשר להתקיים לעמוד לפניך, ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. We praise you, Holy One, for wondrous acts of creation and healing. And on the following page, we thank God for our souls, that which gives us our personalities and enlivens us, allows us to express emotions. Well, let's read together in the middle of the page. Pure, my God, is the soul you gave me. You formed it You shaped it. You breathed it into me. You keep it safe within me. Someday, when my soul returns to you, I will find a place in eternity. But as long as spirit breathes within me, I place before you my thanks. Eternal my God and God of my ancestors, creator of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol b'sar ish. We give you praise, Adonai. All life is in your hand and in your care, the soul of every living being. Page 124. We'll join responsively in these morning blessings that get us ready, that were initially part of a morning routine of somebody would wake up and say these individual blessings as they went through all of the stages of waking up. And so we've now put them into our Siddur, into our Machzor, and so we are thankful for all of those mundane tasks that without which we really couldn't begin each and every new day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasach vivina lahavchin ben yom uven laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kifufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shesachani la'ifalach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam amechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten li'ayev koach.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tselem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani bat chorim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael batifara. Page 136. Blessed are we, blessed our gathering, as we open our hearts to the voice of the shofar. Happy are we who hear its call to return, the sacred trumpet of Teshuvah. Blessed are we held close by an ancient sound that echoes Lador Vador from generation to generation. Happy are we, rising to the joyful cry of a new year. Blessed are we who hears in these blasts of sound the voice of community. Happy are we who know its embrace, its season of celebration, its quest for connection and purpose. Holy is this gift of community, blessed the act of belonging. And we invite Dr. Vidmar forward to be our Bal Tekiah. Shema Yisrael, the divine abounds everywhere and dwells in everything. Its faces are infinite, its sources suffuses all. The many are one. Tekiah. Shvarim teruah. Tekiah. Blessed is the soul-reaching sound of the shofar. It proclaims the purpose of this day. Blessed is community, source of joy, solace, and strength to every living soul. Yasher Koach, page 139. Hamelech Yoshev al Kisei Ram Vanisa. Beloved friend, who calls us to conscience, reminds us of our own strength, invites us to grow, empowers us to act. Cosmic mysteries are yours, but the earth is ours to tend and heal as best we can. Beloved partner in creation, we join our strength with yours to make you real and true. Page 142. We rise together for Baruch Hu, our call to worship.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. Le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated as we continue with Yotzer Or. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Yotzer Or Uvorei Choshech, Osei Shalom Uvorei Et Hakol, Or Olam Ba'otzer Chaim, Orot Me'ofel Amar Vayehi. Hameir La'aretz V'ladarim Aleha Barachamim, Uvtuvo Mechadesh B'chol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh B'reishit, Ma'rabu Ma'asecha Arnai. Kulam b'chochma asita, malah haaretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shebach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or sha'asita yefa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'or'o, baruch ata Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights. Page 148. Bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth. Lead us with upright pride to the land that is ours. For you are a God of miracles and wonders. From all the peoples of the earth you sought us out and brought us near to your great, enduring truth. So with love we acknowledge and proclaim that you are one. Baruch Ata Adonai, Habocher Ba'amo Yisrael, Be'ahava. We rise together for Shema, page 150.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated as we continue with Haftarah on the following page.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vlechtecha v'derech u'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu etotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam tam mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai V'tem kedoshim leElohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lehiot lachem leElohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet. Page 163. Remember the stories of slavery, and you will never stop working for freedom. Remember their fear at the edge of the sea, and self-doubt will never defeat you. Remember when desperation turned to celebration, and you will never let go of hope. Remember the words of the Baal Shem Tov. Forgetfulness leads to exile. Remembrance is the secret of redemption. We join together in Mi Chamocha, page 164.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nor tilot osef eleh, shira chadasha shemchu giulim, l'shimcha sfat hayam, yachad kulam, hoduim lichu ve'ameru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdeichenu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go'aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael. Blessed are you in our lives, Eternal One, who redeemed Israel. We rise together for the Amidah, page 166.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol, v'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'neihem, l'man shemo be'ahava. Zochreinu l'chaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, v'chodveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, l'mancha Elohim l'chaim, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Izrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol harav l'hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechakel chayim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol b'rachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidomelach, Melech menit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua.
Mi chamocha el harachamim, zocher yitzrav lechaim barachamim.
V'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh
page 179. On Rosh HaShanah, we plunge like swimmers into a sea of words. On Yom Kippur, the sea rises, then crests, and we emerge sealed by the wax, warmed by the fire of braided candle. The new year is like a trailhead, opening wide before us, the day of fasting, narrow, breathless, so quick to close. We contemplate a new year, and this we know. Some of us will live and some will die. Some will die young and some very old. Some by water and some by fire. Some by sword and some by beast. Some by hunger and some by thirst. Some by plague and some by earthquake. Some by stoning and some by strangling. Some of us will feel ease. Some will be restless. Some will have peace of mind, and some will have strife. Some will be tranquil, some will be tormented. Some will be raised high, and some will be brought low. Some will have riches, and some will be impoverished. Even so, the way we act, the way we speak, the way we meet God's image in ourselves and in others, these things have great power to make our lives matter. Therefore, let us make whole the broken shards, green and thick the withering grass. Let the wind fill us with urgency for life. Let dreams give birth to justice and goodness. God of holiness, God of hope, let us glimpse your truth as we attach our hope to yours.
ובשופר גדול ייתקע, וקול מעמדך יישמע, ומלאכים יחפזון, וכילורי ידיים יאחזון.
But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. Let's read together in the middle of page 180. You are everything that we praise you for, slow to anger, quick to forgive. You do not wish the death of sinners, but urge them to return from their ways and live. Until the day of death, you wait for them. You accept them at once if they return. Since you created us, you know our impulses, but we are but flesh and blood. Page 184, please be seated. Oh, no, please remain standing. Sorry.
Nekadesh, Nekadesh, Nekadesh et Shemacha ba'olam, Nekadesh et Shemacha ba'olam, Kishem shemakdishim oto b'shnei marom, Kakatuv היה נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, קדוש, קדוש אדוני צבאות, מלוך הארץ כבודו, אדיר, אדירים,
We will teach your greatness, Lador Vador, from generation to generation, and to the end of time we affirm your holiness. Our God, your praise shall never part from our lips, for your power is boundless, sovereign, and holy. Page 196. Please be seated. Eloheinu v'lehel v'otenu v'imotenu ya'aleh v'yavo, our God and God of our generations before us. May a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letova, ufoknenu vo levracha, v'oshienu vo lechaim. Eternal our God, remember us, be mindful of us, and redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing. Page 201. Let's read together. May all be moved to serve you. Praise your name, bless your name, your splendor and your justice. Sea and land shall then proclaim. Let us seek your face at sunrise. In the darkness, teach your ways. May your power and uniqueness be the essence of our days. When we speak about your glory, when we praise you for your might, those who feel your presence, turn from darkness to the light. Let seacoasts burst exultant, hills embrace you with joyful sounds. When all people sing together, the world shall see your sovereign crown. Page 202. We rise for Elenu. Better you than me. Oh.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula le'otzer v'reshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu k'hem, ve'gor aleinu k'chol ha'olam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ימעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו Emet malkeinu efesuvato, kakatu betorato, be'adata hayom behashevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, bashamayim ima'al, ve'aretz ve'al ha'aretz,
Please be seated, and we continue on page 206, and we call Dr. Brad Fox forward as our Baal Tekiah. We join together in our blessing, not only for hearing the voice of the shofar, but also the words of Shehechianu, giving thanks for the opportunity for us to be together on this sacred day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Tekiah. Shvarim teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. Today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in a way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice and holiness. Let's read together. Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, by pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out, Tekiah. Lovingly, favorably, receive our prayers of Malchuyot. Page 216. Let there be peace. Grant goodness, blessing, and grace, constancy and compassion to us and all Israel, your people. Together, Avinu, bless and unite all human beings in the light of your presence, for your light has shown us a holy path for living, devotion to love, generosity, blessedness, mercy, life, and peace. In your goodness, bless your people Israel with peace at all times. Let us and the whole family of Israel be remembered and inscribed in the book of life. May it be a life of goodness, blessing, and prosperity. May it be a life of peace. Oseh HaShalom.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha,
chen v'chesed berachamim berachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. We leave aside the prayer book for a few moments, and we look inward. We look to those hopes, those prayers that are in our own hearts, our own minds. Each year, as we prepare for these days, we think of the past year. We think of the things that we did that we are proud of, the things that we perhaps could have done better. So let's take a moment for ourselves. These days are about community for sure, but they're also about each one of us. So take that moment, that precious moment for yourself, and have that private conversation with God.
Shalom imrama, Yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael,
Ve'imru, imru, amen.
Yaseh shalom,
Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Page 222. Let's read responsively. Loving Father, infinite power, gentle, forgiving, lofty, and true. Avinu,
Malkeinu,
compassionate Mother,
omnipotent Lord,
comforting presence.
fathomless mystery,
Avinu,
Malkeinu,
our rock and redeemer.
life of the universe,
close to us, always.
impossibly far,
Avinu,
Malkeinu,
embracing,
confounding,
accepting our frailty.
decreeing our end,
Avinu,
Malkeinu,
and together. None of these are true. None of them are you. Yet we stand as those before us have stood, summoned to judgment, longing for love. Avinu Malkeinu, may these words be a bridge. They come from our hearts. May they lead us to you as we rise together. We'll read both Hebrew and English. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu va'al olalenu v'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale dever v'cherev v'ra'a me'alenu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale kol tsar umastin me'alenu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew us for a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, chanenu va'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'Hanenu, ki ein manu masim. Aseh manu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh manu, tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'Hanenu, ki ein manu masim.
And we remain standing as we turn to page 226 for our Torah service. When we first appeared on the stage of world history, a book was in our hands. This book, this sacred scroll. And we were told, this is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart. And we were told, you can surely do it. And then we learned, this is where heaven and earth touch.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kemasecha, malachutecha malachut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch, le'olam avayit, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom.
And we invite Janice Whitmer's house forward to open the ark.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. Our Torah portion this morning, which is Parshat Bereshit, fitting of celebrating the birthday of the world, and so we read the creation of the world, page 331. Our first reader this morning we call Joel Waldman, and for our first aliyah we call Edie Joseph, Ta'amod Rina Sara Bat Mendel Ezra V'Avraham.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Vayed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'atoret v'horet ototohu bohu v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim v'yomer Elohim yehi or v'yehi or v'yar Elohim et ha'or kitov v'yavdel Elohim Vein hor vein ha, vayikra Elohim, la'or yom, v'lachoshe kora laila, vayhi erev vayhi boker yom echad.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Thank you. So usually we would have everybody stay up here, but in abundance of caution, I suppose, we'll have only those who are participating. For our second reader, we call Jesse Thorpe, and for our second aliyah, Pam Lowe, Ta'amot Panina Batzeleg V'Leah Aliyah Sheni.
Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch
Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Vayed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Vayed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Elohim yehi rakia b'toch hamayim v'hi mavdil ben mayim lamayim vayisa vayas Elohim et harakia vayavdal Hamayim asher mitachat larakia uvin hamayim asher larakia vayichen vayikra Elohim larakia shamayim Vayhi erev vayhi boker yom sheni.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet v'chaye olam nata b'tachenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. And for our third reader, we call Corlin Moray. And for our third aliyah, Lauren Unger. Lauren, what's your Hebrew name? Ta'amod Leah Rachel Bat Avraham V'Masha. La aliyah shlishi.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Elohim, Yikavu Hamaim. What? Oh. Kita'ach Hashamayim Al Mechom Echad Vatera'eh Hayabasha Vayehichen Vayikra Elohim Vayabasha Eretz Umikveh Hayamayim Karayamim Vayar Elohim Kitov Vayomer Elohim Tashe Haaretz Deshe Esav Mazriya Zera Eitz Pari Ose Pari Lam Minehu Asher Zorovo Al Haaretz Vayehichen Vatatse Haaretz Deshe Esav Mazriya Zera Liminehu Ba'etz Ose Pari Asher Zorovo Liminehu Bayar Elohim Kitov Bayahi Erev Bayahi Voker Yom Shlishi.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu B'Torat Emet V'Chaye Olam Nata B'Tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. So for those of you who are reading, it's always different when you're in the moment, right? It's always different. And why? Because it is that power of Torah. It is that power of Torah in the midst of a service, when those letters take shape and begin to dance. And so it is that moment of sacredness in which we enjoy the reading of. And so thank you. While in the presence of Torah, we call to mind all those in our community, all those who need a blessing of healing. And so Misha Berach can be found on page 245. We think not only of those who are battling COVID-19 and their caregivers and all of the associated struggles that people have with this terrible illness. We also think of those who are stricken with any number of other illnesses, whether it's an illness of body or mind or heart or spirit. And we send out our energies and our prayers for healing. And we especially mention Greg Bennett, Michael Byron, Andrea Kepner-Blake, Scott Gordon, Patricia Heibel, Rebecca Gottlieb, Julian Howell, Thomas Costines, Phyllis Levin, Bernice Fox, Zachary Jackson, Dane Marcinowski, Berko Shervetsky, Jim McCann, Debbie Perry, Fran Porras, Frank Fusaro, Bruce Harrell, Sasha Leopold, Lorraine Wellington, Matea Press, David Spanger, Marcia Pinsky-Koblitz, Jack Hall, Joe Riley, Joseph Besetner, Edie Francis, and Kathy and Jerry Schreier. If you have other names to add, please add them into our chat box, or if you are here, you can say the name aloud as I look around. We join together in our blessing for healing.
Yisheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
For the honor of Hagba and Galila, we call Pam Lowe and Craig Reynolds. Please rise.
Mitzvot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, lai 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 lai, yai lai la lai lai la lai lai, yai lai lai lai, ya lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, ya lai 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 lai, ya lai la lai lai la lai lai.
Please be seated. For the honor of reading the blessings of the Haftarah, we call Edie Joseph. The Haftarah for this morning is the Haftarah for second day Rosh HaShanah, coming to us from Jeremiah. And while you are listening to the reading, you might read the description of the Haftarah on page 254, which explains a little bit about why this particular Haftarah from Jeremiah was chosen as a way of sort of reconciling the idea of return and of redemption for the people.
Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
melech haolam, asher bachar bin v'im tovim, b'ratzav v'dibreihem hane'emarim be'emet, baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah, u'Moshe avdo, u'Yisrael amo, u'b'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek.
Ko amar Adonai, thus said the Eternal, a people, survivors of the sword, gained grace in the wilderness. Long ago, when Israel was on its journey home, the Eternal appeared and said, with an everlasting love I have loved you. Indeed, with a love that is faithful, I draw you near. Once more, I will build you up. Young maiden Israel, you will be made anew. Once more, you will take up your drums in hand and join in the dance of the joyous. Once again, you will plant vines on Samaria's hills, and the planters will live to enjoy them. For a day is coming when the watchman will announce in the hills of Ephraim, arise, and let us go up to Zion, to the Eternal, our God. For thus said the Eternal, cry out in joy for Jacob, cry out in praise over the pinnacle of the nations. Sing and shout and say with voices raised, Eternal, save your people, the remnant of Israel. I am here to bring them back from the land of the north, to gather them from the ends of the earth, and the blind and the lame among them, the women who are pregnant along with birthing mothers. They shall return here, a great community. With weeping they will come, with compassion I will guide them. I will bring them on a smooth path to brooks of water. They will not falter, for I have become like a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Nations, hear the word of the Eternal. Declare it in the distant lands and say, the one who scattered Israel will gather them in and guard them as a shepherd the flock. For the Eternal has redeemed Jacob and saved him from hands stronger than his own. Happy their song when they reach the summit of Zion and bask in the glow of divine generosity. Grain, wine, oil, sheep, and cattle, they will be like a well-watered garden through and through, never again to languish. The maidens will dance with delight, and the young and their elders together. Their grief I will turn into bliss. I will comfort them and gladden them in their time of sorrow. The priests will have their fill of fatness, and my people my bountiful goodness, declares the Eternal. Thus said the Eternal, Ko amar Adonai, a voice is heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children, for they are gone. Ko amar Adonai, thus said the Eternal, keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your labor shall have its reward, declares the Eternal. They shall return from the enemy's land, and there is hope for your future, declares the Eternal. Your children shall return to their land. How I hear Ephraim lamenting, you have disciplined me like a wild calf. I have been disciplined. Help me to return, and I will return. For you are my eternal God. Now that I have turned back, I am filled with sorrow. Now that I am made aware, I strike my thigh in remorse. Ashamed and humiliated, I carry the disgrace of my early life. Truly, Ephraim is my precious child, my delight, and though I speak against him, I remember him with tenderness. That is why my heart yearns for him. I will receive him back in love, declares the Eternal. Ne'um Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, tzur kol halamim, zadik b'kol hadarot, ha'el ha'neman, ha'omer ve'osei, hamdaber umkayem, shekol devarav emet batzedek, al atorah, v'al ha'avodah, v'al hanvi'im, V'yal yom hazikaron hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, lechavod ultifaret, al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach, umavarchim otach, yet barach shimcha b'fi chol chai, tamid leolam vayed, udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad, Baruch atah Adonai, melech kol haaretz, mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron.
Amen. Yasher koach.
Thank you.
Well, Shana Tova. Shana Tova, everybody. And Shana Tova to all of our community, whether you are here or you are joining us via live stream. This morning I'd like to take a look, as is our tradition, in a more informal way. Let's take a look at this morning's Torah portion. So it's on page 330. The absolute very beginning of Torah. It was chosen not by tradition, actually, but chosen by the early reformers. They felt that the traditional readings of the holidays were uncomfortable. They didn't necessarily appreciate the sections from Leviticus that spoke of laws and rules and such, and so they shifted. They appreciated the story of the binding of Isaac, and they put that as an alternative reading for one of the days and another of the days, this reading from the very beginning. Now recognize that in its first iterations and for many, many years, there was no second day, Rosh HaShanah, at least in Reformed tradition. And while one could make an argument that says when you're outside the land of Israel, you need that second day because, well, does anybody know why we have second day of holidays? Well, right, you have to have a place to go with the in-laws, right? You have to have absolutely, no.
Because of the calendar, they didn't quite know when the holiday started.
Correct, because of the time it took for the message to get from Jerusalem and the temple in Jerusalem out to the outlying areas well beyond the borders of Israel, the people in Israel people outside of Israel may not quite know if Rosh Hashanah was on this day or that day. They knew it was on one of them. And so, of course, they celebrate, actually not Rosh Hashanah, the holidays, the other holidays of Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. They weren't quite sure whether those might happen on this day or that day, and so they did them on both. And that way they would be covered. So, when the Reform movement came along, and part of their mission to remove replication and duplication, said, we have a calendar. The calendar has been set for hundreds of years at that point. Why do we know exactly when the holiday is. Nobody is confused about this. We don't need the extra days. So they removed the extra days of Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot, except when, of course, as Dennis points out, Pesach, which many people continue to do two Seders for exactly Dennis's reason, because you have to have a place, a time to go to one side of the family or the other side of the family. So, in In the case of Rosh Hashanah, though, Rosh Hashanah is different. Rosh Hashanah always has 2 days, whether it's in Israel or here, outside of the land of Israel. And why does it have 2 days? Because the commandment for Rosh Hashanah is, in distinction to the other holidays that say on this day you should celebrate this holiday, for this holiday it says you should hear days of hearing the blasts. And so on Rosh Hashanah we have the 2 days. So in our tradition we have read Akedah, the binding of Isaac, in some years, and Bereshit in other years. And what we've started to do is alternate the two, so that this year, for example, we read the binding of Isaac first day and creation story second day, and next year we'll do the opposite, so that everybody has a chance to hear and take a look at this amazing story. So let's take a look. The word begins. Bereshit bara Elohim. Strange way to begin. Now, the rabbis come up with a number of wonderful stories of why begin with the word Bereshit. Now remember, the Torah has no vowels and no punctuation, which allows us certain freedoms, because we can put different vowels in there, and that creates different words. So, how do you know it's Bereshit, not Bareshit or Bereshit? You don't know what the vowel is. We know it's Bereshit only because the Masoretes, probably 1500 or 1800 years ago, said this is how you write the text. And so they put the vowels in. Remember, vowels are a new invention. Hebrew, we think about it as if the vowels were always there, right? The vowels are missing. Well, they're not missing. They were never there. So, for instance, the vowels aren't missing in a Torah. Torah scroll has no vowels or punctuation. It's only consonants. The entire language was consonantal, was written consonants only. It was only in the last 1800 or maybe 2,000 years that we added the vowel system into the text. I often talk about it as, and you're probably old enough, remember those biology textbooks that had those plastic acetate sheets in them, and you had a picture of a skeleton, and then you put a picture of the muscle system, and then the circulatory system, and then the skin, and whatever. So the Torah works exactly the same. So first you have the skeletal text, just consonants, and then you overlay the punctuation of verses, chapters and verses, and then you overlay that the punctuation of letters and vowels, and overlay that the Tamei Mikra, the cantillation marks, the way you sing it. So it's all of these layers that when you look at a printed text, as we have here, you'll see not only letters and you see the letters, you have the vowels, you also have the cantillation marks. So those are the kind of layers that get laid on top. But if you just have that first layer, that first word could mean any number of different things. And as they say, the devil is in the details, because the text is translated often as in the beginning. Here they've translated is at the beginning of God's creating the heavens and the earth. Because in fact, the word Bereshit is indefinite. It's not the beginning, it's in a beginning. Or when God began to create. But the text could also have been read as meaning not in, but with. With Reshit. What's Reshit? Well, for Reshit, we have to look actually to Proverbs, where Reshit is seen as the word for wisdom. So now read the text. Bereshit, with wisdom, bara Elohim, God created et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. A beautiful text. Because what does it mean to create with wisdom? Intent, exactly. Forethought, planning, intent. And there's a beautiful midrash that says when God began to create, or when God thought to create the world, God needed a plan, a blueprint. And the Torah became God's blueprint. So it wasn't a haphazard experience. It wasn't a science experiment. God planned for how the world would be created and how the world would work. The world as God created it was done with intent and not just letting it kind of evolve or happen. So Bereshit bara Elohim. And what did God create at the very beginning? Hashamayim ve'et haaretz, the heavens and the earth. And then the text goes on to detail all of the different parts of creation. And why do we read this for Rosh HaShanah? What possible, it's an interesting story and it's a cute play on words, and I could show you 4 other different meanings of Bereshit if you wanted to, but why? So today is Yom Ha'arat Ha'olam, the birthday of the world. Lovely. No. No, it's a lovely thing, but what does it mean to me? Like, okay, so what? Right, lots of candles. Well, we are always working in this, in reflections, right? We always think of the text as a reflection on us. And we are created in the image of God. Right? Whatever we do is this mirror image or this shadow image, actually. It's not mirror. It's not a mirror. It's actually a shadow. It says B'Tselem Elohim, and a tselem is a shadow. And a shadow is a dim representation, right? Because we are not with the powers of God, although we emulate some of them. So we are in this dim reflection of God. And so if God creates the entire world with forethought, planning, purpose, and intent, our job, and I think the message on Rosh HaShanah, is to think about our own worlds, our own sense of how we create our community, how we create relationships, how we create our work, how we create what we do. That we should do that with intent, not let it just sort of happen. It's too easy to let it just roll. Rather, do it with reshit. Do it with that wisdom of intent. Because when we do, and we get to the end of the text, when God has finally created most of the things, including people, what does God say? Ki tov. It's good. It's good. It works. And so when we go through that process of creating with intentionality, then we create something that's truly good. Shana Tova. We'll turn back now to return the Torah to the Ark. Actually, no, we won't. We will turn to page 263. And we'll invite Dr. Vidmar forward once again for our shofar. Sorry, 267. 267. God of remembrance, remember the covenant of our ancestors as we reaffirm it today. Remember, we are a people of noble ideals. Help us to attain them. Remember all your people, all the nations on the road to peace, and bless their efforts. Remember with mercy the binding of Isaac, the sorrow of Sarah, Abraham's words, "Here I am, Hineni." Our memory fades, but you remember all that we have forgotten. Your presence is a throne where all things matter and nothing is lost. Baruch atah Adonai, zocher habrit. Tekiah, shvarim teruah. Tekiah, tekiah, shvarim. Tekiah, tekiah, teruah, tekiah. The prophet said, "Cry aloud, lift up your voices like a shofar." This is the meaning of the verse. See yourself as a shofar, an instrument of the divine. Do not take pride in your virtue or the power of your deeds. With every mitzvah you do, every act of intellect, goodness, and love, God's Spirit breathes through you. Page 276. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak asked, "Why is the Torah likened to a tree? Just as a small piece of wood may set fire to a large one, so it is with Torah scholars. Young students sharpen the minds of their elders." Rabbi Hanina said, I have learned from my teachers, even more from my colleagues, but from my students most of all. Yahalalu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav shemo levado. All praise God's name, for God's name alone is truly sublime, as we rise and return the Torah to the ark.
Hodol eretz v'shamayim v'yarem keren le'amo tehila lechol chasidam livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Et chaim hi lamachazikim v'tomechea me'ushar drachea darcheinom v'chol netivotea shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva charish charish yameinu charish yameinu kekedem.
Please be seated as we continue on page 284 and call Dr. Fox forward for our final shofar. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol teruah amo Yisrael barachamim, Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, true voice of your people Israel. Tekiah, Shvarim teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shvarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah Gedolah. Shkoyach. Yasher koach. And so we turn to page 286 as we rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shaveach la'adon ha'kol, lateit gedula le'yotzeh b'reishit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo asamanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We call to mind now those who died most recently in our congregation: Richard Schwartz, Richard Allen Sharon, and Marilyn Bernhard. And we observe the following yahrzeits for Caskell Solomon, Louis Hirsch, Nathan Naubauer, Yetta Aaron, Leo Wertheimer, Bernard Levick, Bertha Strauss, Rose Umans Abramson, Eileen Chinsky, Jacob Weinberger, Caroline Schoenfield Loeb, Hannah Oppenheimer Schuster, Lucille Frank Hanauer, Abraham Lieb Brown, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If you have names that you would like to add, please add them into our chat box if you are joining us via our live streams, or if you're here, as I look around, please share the name. We join together in words of Kaddish on page 292. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Ba'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agalav izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'elam u'lalmei armaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dikutsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran b'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Please be seated. we have some very few announcements. Actually, this Friday is Shabbat Shuvah, the Shabbat of Return. And on Sunday, we have our Kever Avot services at our respective cemeteries, 10 a.m. at Laurel Hill and 11 a.m. at Anshe Chesed. And often people ask, well, I don't have people buried there, my people are buried somewhere else. This is not only for those who are buried in the cemeteries, but also an opportunity for people to come and remember anybody that you may have lost throughout the course of your life, who may not be in those cemeteries, but these are sacred places of memory for all of us. And so please join us if you wish. And so we'll conclude on page 299 with Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
A big thank you and Yasher Koach to all those who helped make the service so beautiful with your readings and your participation. Jesse, thank you so much for all of your help and your beautiful voice throughout our Rosh Hashanah services. Phil, thank you so much for your help with our sound. And we are looking forward to celebrating the rest of our holidays. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elahei avoteinu v'imotenu, shetechadesh aleinu shana tova u'metuka, our God and God of our ancestors, eternal God of all generations. May your presence in our lives this new year renew our spirits and renew our strength. May it be a good year. May it be a sweet year. May it be a healthy year. Shana tova u'metuka. Amen.
Shana Tova.